I'd like to thank you for allowing us into your homes for this 31st edition of Season 2 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. And I would like to make one quick announcement before I start with the bulk of the show. And that's just a quick reminder that if I could impose on everyone to please keep George Humphrey in your thoughts and prayers. He recently had some chest surgery, and so he's still recovering. And I would just like to ask everyone if they could please just send him your thoughts, prayers, and energy for a speedy recovery, and so he can get back to do what he's used to doing, which is hosting a show every Wednesday from 8 to 9 on Channel 16 called Common Sense. And so, again, I'd like to ask people to just offer your thoughts and prayers for a successful and speedy recovery for George so he can get back in action full-fledged. And as you can see, I have a guest this evening as Dr. Jarli Lillemon. And thanks, Jarli. I really appreciate you coming back on as a guest. And so perhaps some of the people that have seen him before will recognize him from being both on my show and Jeff's show on Therefore I Am. And we're going to speak again about the Mayan calendar and some aspects of it and why we feel it's important to start thinking in terms of a calendar that will be based on a more natural rhythm, a more in tune with our bodies, more in tune with nature, and more in tune with those natural harmonics that cycle together. And it's based on a 13-month, 28-day calendar in opposition to the existing calendar, which is 12 months with a variety of different days, that keeps us locked in an artificial rhythm. It keeps us out of sync with nature, and it prevents us from being, again, with a natural flow. Again, keeping in mind that some of the relations and analogies we can make with a 28-day, 13-month calendar would be, for instance, the moon's rotation around the Earth is approximately that. And also the woman's menstrual cycle is a 28-day cycle, and tying together the moon and water and tides and women's menstrual things and all that certainly can factor in as well. But just the rhythms that are accompanying one another that tie in into that respect. And so, Jarli, if you want to go ahead and add a few comments along those lines, as far as
just a regular, it's a regular rhythms where in the Gregorian calendar it's.
Right, stop, start, herky jerky.
Like there's no. If you were playing in a band and you're trying to play a Gregorian song, the band would fall apart.
It'd be discordant, disharmonic.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any rhythm. Nobody can
no
dance
rhythm.
to
That's
that.
a good one.
You can't shake your booty to that Gregorian. So,
right.
But the 13 moon calendar, however, it's every moon's 28 days, and then of course 13 moons of 28 days is 364 days.
Right.
And then there's one day, which is, called a green day or day out of time, which is between the old year and the new year.
So rather than having every 4 years with the extra time that's added over, having a leap year day every 4 years, we just have a 364-day calendar from the get-go and take one day as a so-called day out of time. That is like a bridge or a transition day between one calendar year as it ends and transitioning into the upcoming unfolding of a new Mayan calendar year and the new opportunities that has available for us. And so that's coming up pretty quick. This whole day at a time is coming up this month, as a matter of fact, and maybe we can get to some of the details about the day at a time and its significance.
Yeah, so the day at a time, as you mentioned, is that one day, which is not really a substitution for a leap day, of course.
Right.
But it's just that one day that's Galactic Freedom Day. So the 13 moon calendar, it's and it's based on the Mayan calendar, as you said. It's not a geocentric or a heliocentric calendar like the Gregorian. It's a galactic-centric, lunar-centric. It's the solar system. It's every major cycle of the planets you can think of is all harmonized within this harmonic module, which is called the Tzolk'in. The count of days that the Mayas came around.
Right.
And the day out of time, of course, when you use this 13 and 20, you end up with the 13 moons, and the day out of time is Galactic Freedom Day. It's a big celebration, and it happens on July 26th. And of course, that's very soon.
Right, it's going to be falling on a Friday. And actually, we're going to, perhaps not Jarli because he may be out of town, but I know myself, and I'm pretty sure Jeff, I haven't really spoken to him specifically about it, but I know he's interested in also putting together some sort of an event, and we'll make folks more aware of that as we're able to fine-tune and get some definition to that event and what we're going to do. There's a good chance that we'll be meeting at someone's house and having a very informal get-together, kind of along the lines of the metaphysical meetings that we host, but just with the Mayan calendar as the main theme and what that has to offer for us. And so we will be hosting an event upcoming on the 26th, on the day out of time, to celebrate that very transition point from the old calendar to the new calendar. Now we're just passing out of what is called the Red Planetary Moon year, and this represents, if you can see the two bars, the number system of the Mayan. They use dots and bars, and so with that being the case, these two bars rather represent the number 10. 5 plus 5 is 10, and so that is the quality called planetary. Number 10 relates to the planetary quality, and the red moon is this glyph here. And so we're passing out of that year now. So coming up on the 25th will be the last day of this calendar year, and then the day out of time, which is the 26th, will be the transition.
Actually, the 25th is the day out of time.
I'm sorry, 25th day out of time, the 26th starting the new calendar day. And so let's speak a bit about what we had an opportunity for with this year, if you don't mind, and let's kind of touch base on some of what was available for this past period of time and what we may have accomplished during that time and what we can acknowledge from that.
Yeah. So the red planetary moon, each glyph and each tone, they have these qualities, as Corey was mentioning. The planetary tone is about, it's the 10th tone in a circle of 13, and the red moon is some number in a cycle of 20. The red moon, it represents the purification and flow and universal water. The power of the universal water, of course, as you can see on the back behind us. And the ocean, the water,
right.
Flowing,
the concept of flow.
Yeah.
Right.
And the planetary tone, of course, is to do with the perfection and to production and producing things. Manifestation. And of course, when you think about this, the past year, from last July till approximately now, there's been a lot of things happening, and a lot of them have been, you can characterize it as flow, a big time, right?
I think so, yes.
Flow, whether it's good or bad, we wouldn't necessarily pass judgment on here now, but there's been a lot of overturning of energies, and a lot of things have been coming into manifestation. And so, by acknowledging this, and just kind of feeling out with the Mayan time calendar, which it's ancient. It's an ancient system. It's 5,000 years old for all we know, maybe older than that.
I would say older for sure.
And probably passed from galactic beings and such. Like
quite possibly.
Who knows? But where it came from, we don't know. But we know it's very ancient. And so the past year has been flow, purification, and also a kind of a manifestation of coming into being in a sense. And then the upcoming year is the Spectral Wizard year, the white Spectral Wizard year, which you can see here. And when you look at the tone here,
so let's go. So we go from here. This year, which you see the 10 and the red moon, and that's ending.
And then you see the wizard here.
And so the 13 tones is going to be on the 11th of the 13 cycle, and then of the 20 you have this one here, which is the white wizard.
The white wizard, and the white wizard enchants and brings about receptivity and timelessness. And so this year is going to be kind of where we're kind of turning inward a bit more, and more starting to sense and the state of receptivity and enchantment. Whereas the red moon is get stuff going, get stuff moving.
Right.
The white wizard is more pass some more peacefulness, and the spectral tone is about dissolving, liberation and release. And so there's going to be a release and letting go of old, now kind of fixed patterns.
Right.
So we will see a lot of things are going to be falling apart this year. The intention, the impulses. It's hard to say on this day, things are going to fall apart. but in this year, there's going to be a lot of structures that are going to come loose and fall apart, and you'll see that happening.
Right, and some of the keywords I would like to put in to kind of tie into some of those thinkings and those images would be uncovering, discovery, unfolding, and perhaps the idea that what was lost will be recovered or restored, and we can see through this quality, this spectral quality, this 11th node of this liberation and this release, that I do feel, as Darlie is saying, that there is going to be an opportunity for releasing of old, outmoded ways of thinking, release from things that no longer fit and are no longer appropriate, and allow for the release of form that no longer fits. And so we can be liberated from patterns, structures, ideologies, establishments that no longer fit and are appropriate for this time and this upcoming cycle that we have an opportunity to take advantage of.
Yeah, and we'll see that happen.
Right, and I think that's why we want to emphasize now these characteristics and these qualities, so that we can do everything that we can to bend our energies and our intent towards working with these seasons and these cycles, and how we can make take best advantage of them for the helping of everyone collectively. That's the whole key. The universality of this calendar shows itself and demonstrates itself time and time again when you look at the smallest piece of the calendar and then you build out from there, and you see the correspondences from just the different aspects of, but within the 1 year calendar, the different the 13s and the 20s and the 52s and all these different aspects, and the 260, the number 260 ties in, all these smaller cycles tie in, and then you can take from this microcosm, from the smaller, and build out to the macrocosm and see how, even at the universal level, this information still ties in, and the fractionality of it, the part, still applies to the whole. And that's why this can be a universal system of understanding. And that may sound a bit grandiose, and how can a simple calendar offer us something like that? But it really starts with perception and changing our thinking as to being locked in, and what our ideas of limitation are, and what our opportunities for unfolding, liberation, and release, which we have now upcoming, how we can take advantage. So that's the point I want to emphasize along those lines. Really? Did you care to add anything along those lines?
Yeah, just this idea of you mentioned the whole fractal. I was reading something interesting about just the whole fractal structure of this calendar, and how and actually calendar is a bad word to use. We're very used to using that word. It's kind of a Roman root word, and
True, that's true.
it means calends is like when you pay your bills. So we don't think that's really a very good word, because it's like time is money. It goes all the way back to the Romans.
And so it ties us into a usury money and debt money and all those things that that so many people are against as well.
And it's very much rooted in the word for the calendar. It's the Gregorian calendar. So a better word, we think, is the word synchronometer. And so a synchronometer would be, it's meter, measure of synchro, of time.
Synchronicity.
Synchronicity.
Harmonic,
exactly.
cycles, seasons,
Synchronized.
recurring, resonance, all these things that tie in that reflect this quality.
So the fractal nature of the synchronometer is that, for example, I just want to read like one little kind of a span of time known as a lunar octave, which is an 8-year period. In one lunar octave, there are 8 years, which is precisely the same as 5 Venus rounds, or 5 Venus synodic cycles. So in 8 years, exactly Venus goes around 5 times.
Around the sun, it travels around the sun
in
5
a
times.
synodic cycle with the Earth.
And it's a nice even number as well.
Yeah. And in that time, there are 104 perfect moons of 28 days, as well as 100 lunations, meaning 100 full moons, exactly. And for a total of 2,920 kin. And that's an 8-year period. So in an 8-year period, the moon, Venus, and the Earth, and as well as the calendar, all line up in an octave, which of course the octave is a very important concept in music, and
Right.
And in the chakras, and then the Kundalini energy.
Very much so. Metaphysics ties in, is built on systems of 3s and 7s in particular.
Yeah.
And then the 8th obviously would be the next unfolding, or the octave, the next level up.
And so this is just one little example. And what I'm fascinates me is that it doesn't really end. I mean, I've been studying for about a year now, and it just every day there's something new I discover, another important thing that ties into a lot of other things.
Right, that's the key, that this calendar doesn't just tie into time, measurements, form, defining things. It ties into the very nature or essence of our being. It ties into the very life force and how that life force manifests itself periodically through form by frequency, and how that recurs over and over again. And we can see how things build themselves up. The sound builds up the form is destroyed, a new, more adequate form is built up to fulfill and hold the life force. And it's an ongoing process. And again, we can see how it builds up from the smallest, from the atomic, all the way to the universal, that this energy that's measured in this way can be demonstrated and can be tapped into and used. And that's the key, is to tap into this sense of universality, to tap into that sense of universality and to understand to have our way of perception that allows us to encompass more than just our little neck of the woods, our own little piece of the pie. And it keeps us so caught up. The Gregorian calendar keeps us locked into, okay, I have to go to work at this time, I have to do this according to this time, and it keeps us very rigid and locked into a set patterns that can be ritualized and can keep us locked in and keep us from unfolding consciousness. And that's the sad aspect of the artificial time calendar that we are locked into now. It's going to keep us in check, so to speak, until we can understand more so, gain fuller perception of what a lunar style calendar, or in particular the Mayan calendar, can offer for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and then on this note, it's like the result is of the Gregorian calendar is it's based on a space. It's a space, you divide it in circle into 360 degrees, and then you try to slam an extra 5 in days in there, and it's all ends up kind of hokey pokey. And the end result is, well, what has been termed a technosphere, which is like a little sphere that's mankind kind of living in our own little sphere here, and then there's the rest of the world, which is not very happily coexisting with us right now because we're destroying it. And there is no sense of connection from the Gregorian calendar to the ground. Whereas this Mayan calendar, the 13 moon calendar, it's there. The connection is just there, and it's like it wants you.
Yeah, it permeates. It permeates everything.
It wants you to just feel out, be part of the galaxy, be part of the Earth. Like the galaxy, the 260 days in the sacred round. In the Earth takes a 26,000 year precession cycle, where the axis of the Earth goes around 26,000 years. 260 days, that's another fractal relationship. One galactic spin, 260 days, 26,000 years. It's just divide one by the other and you get 100 or 1,000 or something like that. Very, very fractal. Things break down on the smallest level and they come out on the highest level, and you just see it.
Right, you could tie in the correspondences and all of these cross currents, again, on a universal all the way down to in our own lives, and how we can apply and synchronize, if you will, with these larger cycles. And there are, again, as I was saying, there's so many different little cycles that cross and intersect and blend, just in the same sense that the 10 and one of the 20 glyphs would combine to tie in, and these change. And then just in the same sense that upcoming, as we were saying, the next of the 20 falls into line, and the next of the 13 tones falls into line, and it makes a combination. And so there's an endless combination of cycles that's available. And one of the things I want to get into, I guess, is the fact that, as many people are aware, that the Mayan calendar does end in 2012. And so there is a culmination to a certain degree, but also it's an unfolding into a whole nother aspect of understanding, intuitional levels, and again, just open opportunity that we have available in the very near future, if we can start to understand how, again, this life force and this essence permeates this system, and how we can tap into it to understand our connectivity, as Yarli was saying, with other groups, other individuals, other nations, what have you. This amalgamation and coming together, a unification of purpose is very important for us in the future. And we can see all factions of human endeavor coming together in group formation and forming in some sort of order and pattern. As to what's going to dominate control of these patterns is still remains to be seen, and how these patterns are going to pan out and play out remain to be seen. We can progress in ignorance and retain the current status quo, or we can take advantage of what's available, lift the shackles off, and proceed with some real freedom, some real release, and some real liberation in this upcoming opportunity. So it's just a matter of us understanding that these currents are there, but we can just take advantage of them. You know, it's kind of like asking for divine intervention, praying, and that sort of thing. The help is there. It's just a matter of asking for it and tapping into those sources, these unseen aspects or these esoteric aspects of creation and how they play in and factor into our humanity and other kingdoms as well. It's nothing escapes from these cycles.
Yeah, and that's like you're saying, it's like there's a whole bunch of things that are out there, and it's really a matter of your perception.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, here in this calendar, it's like, okay, here's a calendar. Now somebody might ask, some people sometimes ask me, now do I have to forget everything else I know now and just kind of start this new religion thing here? And that's something that, when people say that to me, I just think that, I just want to make it real clear, like the Tolkien and the Mayan calendar doesn't ask anyone to, you can believe in Jesus, or you can believe in Buddha, or whatever you want to do. It's like it doesn't really affect any of those things.
I would say they would amplify, emphasize, and you just help out.
Yeah,
overall.
help you see the patterns. It's like a tool. It's a very powerful tool, and it doesn't. You don't have to relinquish any of your cherished beliefs to accept it. I mean, you would have to relinquish your cherished belief that the Gregorian calendar is the end all of calendars.
Right.
Really, the Gregorian is a sort of the end result of political struggles and ignorance and egocentric, and kind of like, oh, a circle has 360 degrees, this is obviously what we got to do. But that's about as much thought as went into it, I think.
So really, I think the main thinking behind it was the control factor. Those in power understand these esoteric or these hidden cycles, and so they knew very well, and in this instance through the Roman Catholic Church, no disrespect, I was raised Catholic, but still the heads of these institutions want to keep us locked into a certain mode of thinking, want to keep us dependent to a large degree on these institutions. If we all of a sudden break away and start changing our perceptions about certain fundamental tenets of these establishments, like the Catholic Church, for instance, or some established governmental institution, when we start to take our power back from these institutions that have been, holding our hand for so long, now more so it's time to say, hey, I'm a big boy now, I can do this myself, thank you, you've been helpful and I do appreciate your help, but those days of being, just sheltered and coddled and led around, like a bull with a ring through his nose, that has to end. And so we have to take responsibility, and taking responsibility of time and bringing that back into the fold is one key step in bringing back and recovering some of the latent power that we have, that we've basically given away through our ignorance and also through those institutions that have usurped and stolen that from us, and they don't allow us to have this fuller understanding. So it's incumbent upon us, it's up to us to try to find the ways to get back to that the means to have a larger unfolding of unconsciousness. It's really up to us as to how we want to choose to do that.
You're absolutely right about that. It's really a matter of taking charge of your own mind, taking charge of your perceptions, and nobody can really truly tell you how to experience.
That's a
good
point.
You have to do that yourself.
Right, yeah. The qualities of each day are going to be pretty much the same for most people. It's just how do you choose to proceed, with that same opportunity that everybody else has. You make the most of it or you make the least of it. It's up to you.
Yeah.
I want to bring up one thing. Both Yarly and myself have something in common, which is that our kin is based on the red dragon. My kin is the red overtone dragon, and yours is...
Well, it's a red crystal dragon.
And just to try to see correlations, again, we try to look at the calendar and see how we can find patterns and correlations and correspondences within the calendar. And it seems that the red dragon characteristic, it has to do with birth, nurturing, and being. And there was an individual named Auguste Comte who was Red Galactic Dragon. That was his kin. And this was the main proponent a number of years ago, actually probably in the 20s. He was a French philosopher and also considered the founder of sociology. And Auguste Comte, the Red Galactic Dragon, tried to introduce to the world the 13-month, 28-day calendar. And it did gain some acceptance, and it was through the League of Nations and what have you. There was definite world interest, serious interest in adopting this calendar. But then World War II came around, and all that was ended as a result of the world conflict coming around. And also, too, there was a lot of dragging of feet by the Roman Catholic Church. They did not want this calendar shift to take place, and so they did what they could to prevent it as well. But just to bring that point up, that again, there are characteristics and analogies that you can show, and that this is not a new idea as far as trying to bring this calendar out. People have been trying to bring it out for a while. It's just, I guess like every cycle, it had to stay in the sun, and the time for overall acceptance is perhaps not just yet, but I feel like it's right on the brink of a greater acceptance. And perhaps you could speak about
the calendar change.
Right,
Yeah.
and what that has to offer.
And, you know, we're speaking about this lunar octave I mentioned earlier, where, you know, there's 100 lunations, 8 years, 5 Venus cycles, and all this. Well, the not the upcoming year, the white spectral wizard year, but the one after that is called a blue crystal storm year. And in that year is when the world will accept this as the world standard. It doesn't mean that every person is going to be using it, but the overall consensus among the nations will be, yep, this is the calendar, this is the standard, because it is the most perfect measure of time. You know, comparatively speaking, it's the simplest, is about the simple as it gets, and it's very precise, over thousands of years. And so, so in this 2000 year, July 26th, 2004, when we enter into the blue crystal storm year, will be the, you know, the year, the calendar, the great calendar change, where we roll out away from the Gregorian calendar, from underneath the Gregorian calendar, and pop our heads out in the new day. And the crystal storm, of course, the crystal storm year is about, you know, I dedicate in order to catalyze, you know, change taking place. I dedicate in order to catalyze universalizing energy. And we see it's going to be a big, big year. And and this year marks the beginning of the last lunar octave, the last 8 years before the end of the long count, the current great cycle. And then
the 26,000 year?
Yeah, 26,000 year, as well as the 5,200 year.
Oh, right, okay.
Great cycle, the 13 Baktun cycle. And so we're, at this point, when we enter into this, you know, a year from now, then that's when the calendar will change, and then there's 8 years for the world to basically raise our consciousness in the biosphere, raise our awareness of the biosphere, and really turn around a lot of things. And it's really amazing how fast things can change once people have the awareness and the knowledge.
Right.
It could be like almost like flicking a switch.
Yes, that's a good analogy. I like that analogy.
Um,
But it really, the initial impetus, the initial thinking has to get started first before the actual manifestation can take place. But
Yeah.
the causative agents have to be set into place now. The motivational factors, before the action can actually activate and be expressed, have to come into being first. And so at least keeping in mind and getting our thinking started in this way, as far as, you know, at least internally accepting that these changes are due for us, and that they're only helpful and beneficial for all of mankind and all living things for that matter, that we can start to, you know, ingrain in our thinking more so and condition ourselves more so to a more inclusive way of thinking. And that's really my hope as well, is that indeed, we're not just throwing that out there as an arbitrary year. Oh, we could have said, 2006 or whatever. But the 2004 can provide for the essence of the calendar to be acknowledged to some degree. And again, from there, incrementally, exponentially, it can blow up from there, from that point of acknowledgement. And it only takes a certain amount to initially grasp it for it to finally find its way into public consciousness, just like with any concept or new body of knowledge. It takes a bit of time for it to infiltrate mass consciousness and thinking. And so we still have that available. Now, we will have upcoming we do already host so-called crystal meetings because of the 13-day wave spell that we have opportunities to follow and use the small cycle within the larger year cycle. On the 12th tone day of that, which again is a crystal day, Yarley's been hosting meetings various places around town, and there is one last opportunity for a crystal day meeting in this Mayan year, and that's going to be the 14th. And so if folks have any interest in that, they can contact either our website, and there's another website.
Yeah, it's Ninth Planet, the Ninth Planet website. Could you pop that up, Chris? We have a local website where we, just like a little forum where people write in. We talk a lot, just about kind of practical things or just ideas. We've had some great discussions there, but there is information there about our crystal meetings. And you said I was hosting them, and I kind of helped getting it started, but really it's, whoever happens to be in the family of the kin of that crystal day, which changes, it's circulating, is the host. So it's like a circulating thing, like everything circulates. And that's what, is the
But you gave the birth and the nurture and the being as a red dragon.
Give it a little birth, give it a little
kick in the tail.
Kick in the tail, that's right.
That's great. And I do want to thank one of our previous hosts, Colin, for putting together this great little handout that helped us to get some information together for this evening's show.
Yeah, so, Colin, Blue thanks. Rhythmic Eagle, thank you.
Again,
and Mary, White Galactic Wizard.
Right, a previous host of the meetings. And so it allows, the forum allows for, in Austin, us to be able to gauge and put together some ideas relating to how, in this area, we're working with the Mayan calendar and working with this unfolding of cycles, and also how, our area here ties in universally. So just in the sense that we're working here, other groups around the world are also working in their own way in order to bring forward this fuller understanding of how we can use this calendar, or use this synchronometer, I should say, a better term, for the fuller expression of consciousness.
Yes, it's a calendar with spiritual dimensions, scientific dimensions, mathematical perfection. I mean, it's a very, very inclusive way, a model of time, and it is in fact ancient and newer than newer than tomorrow, because it also ties in with some of these, interpretations of like modern physics that just kind of leads you to know that we're only thinking the time is the way it is because we're stuck in our bodies. And Einstein showed us that. And John Archibald Wheeler, brilliant physicist, actually lives here in Austin. Some of his interpretations are time's going forward and backward, and just really brilliant man, and I'd love to meet him one day.
That'd be great.
Put that seat out there. Maybe I could show him the calendar.
Yeah, that'd be great. Also, and I really appreciate the fact that you have a scientific background yourself, and that you've come to embrace this and the quantum aspects of the calendar, and again, the non-linear, non-material aspects of it, the ideology that really ties into the upcoming unfolding concepts in science. As you say, things are cyclic, and we do find on a higher turn of the spiral that once what has happened once will be revisited in a more refined way. And so we go through cycles, but they keep refining themselves. So what we went through 1,000 years ago, we see again, but just that much better and that much more refined. It shows how the evolutionary trends unfold and how we can latch onto these trends and understand them and make use of them. So let's just, real quick before we start taking calls, I'd like to impose upon you to maybe give a little bit of a visionary, futuristic just whatever you feel
Oh, wishful
intuitively,
thinking.
wishful thinking, however you want to term it, as far as your intuitive perceptions of what may be possible in 2012 when this larger great cycle, the 26,000-year cycle, ends, and then we have more opportunity to take advantage of. So what do you think perhaps might take place during that time?
Well, of course, when a greater understanding of time reaches a general human consciousness, we will first of all not see ourselves in this very, very small way anymore. And we'll actually start to think past ourselves. And so instead of hoarding everything for ourselves, there might be an opportunity to realize that, you know, if you pass things around, they come back, you help build. And like multi-generational projects, things like that, things that take a long time that you know, you need to have a collective kind of awareness of where we're headed, where we're coming from. And I think really those are the kind of things that will come into manifestation, are like, you know, people will realize that we're part of a whole. We're not just humans, the kings of the planets. We're actually shepherds, or we're
Caretakers.
stewards. We're caretakers of this planet, and we share with the other animals. And like one thought I had, which I think might be very close to being true, is the bigger your brain is, the more thoughts you can think, but the more localized you get, because you're now processing so much information that it like makes you think about in a smaller area. Whereas if your brain is tiny, like an ant, then it's like one thought is like the universe. So in that sense, it's like we're humans, we're limited because our brain's too big.
Also, too, we have self-consciousness, and that definitely separates us and keeps us in that egocentric, self-centered mode of thinking. And I think that ties in as well as far as our brain conditioning and consciousness of that in that respect.
And we have that time binding circuit.
And that's also a self-conscious human quality. It doesn't, carry over to the animal kingdoms. They don't have any sense of time. They don't have any use for it. And we can learn from them in that respect. Watching the natural rhythms that animals and insects and all those go through, it ties in very much to the natural cycles of the calendar, more so than it ties into any Gregorian artificial, our arbitrary measuring of things that we tend to use. I'm going to go ahead and throw in my little quick thing real quick. What I feel is that so many people feel that we're going to have an integration of man and machine with, the macro technology, the little nanotechnology, thank you, nanotechnology and that sort of thing, and that these things will be part of us and will integrate with the machine. I see it just the opposite, that the machine will be relegated to its own place, but it will be more and more organic, that the machines will be more organic, and that they will be based on organic living substance as opposed to mechanized metals and things of that nature, and so that we will, I feel like a computer will be more of like a plant in the future, some things of that nature, and also too that the etheric level, the energy body of the planet, and it exists within us as well, will allow itself to where that sense of universality will be real, and it will be carried over into telepathy and ESP and things of that nature. And so we will have a live, vibrant brain trust on the planet, and because there's an analogy of each human being like a brain cell in the brain of the consciousness of the planet. And so if we are the brain cells, how much of the brain is awake right now and how much of it is asleep, I think the brain will be awake to be able to take advantage of these latent powers, just like we have the latent brain powers in our own bodies that we are yet to tap into. The fuller expansion of that is right on the cusp, and we can farm and tend and cultivate it, or we can ignore it and stay locked into this rigid time structure. It's really up to us. And so I think those are some of what we have an opportunity to take advantage of if we can just realize it, just open up the potential, open up what you think is possible and what you think is not possible. So many things are possible if you just allow that thinking. If you just say, oh, no way, that can't happen, then it's not going to happen. But if you think that things are possible, very much, so many things are truly possible.
Absolutely.
One last quick comment you want to make before we take calls?
Just that, those spiritual unfoldment and the light body of the planet and all of those things, they're all tuned into the natural cycles again. And so the Mayan calendar, dream spell calendar, what you call it, whatever you call it, will help you tune into those energies and kind of help you keep track of it. Watch from day to day, you know, see as how the day changes the energies and everything changes, then you can watch and you can experience this sort of firsthand. And
Right.
that's really what you have to do. Is
everything has to be experiential. You can tell somebody about something until you're blue in the face, but until that person experiences it as a truth in their own life, it won't really mean much to them. And that's why living this calendar, or living this synchronometer, is, and see, it's difficult for me even to get past that conditioned thinking about the old ways. To get locked into this new opportunity for expansion, it's really up to us as to how much we want to take advantage of it. Let me go ahead and grab some calls and we'll see what these people have to say. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hello. I'm trying to figure out if it's me you're talking to.
Chris, can you turn up the speaker in here, please, if you haven't already?
Yeah, I think it is. You guys are just blowing my mind, sort of, but it's almost...
I'm sorry, we weren't hearing you.
Sorry, we didn't hear the
Can you
first
start
part
over
of what
again,
you
please?
said.
Okay. I guess I'm a person in transition. I have been a mainstream Christian for a long time, and it got to be where...
what happened?
What happened? Hello?
Chris?
I'm sorry, you were saying, hopefully we'll get you back here in a second. I don't know if the viewers at home are hearing you. We're definitely not hearing you.
Okay.
There we go, there you are.
You got me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry
Okay.
about
Speaking of transition again.
Yeah, I'm just, I left church about 3 months ago because it began to get to where the things that I felt like I knew, well, I guess I could put it this way. I feel like the mainstream church is stuck and that they don't have any new information for me. And every time I turn this on and listen to you, Corey, I'm just like, this guy is... It's interesting. I don't know where you're going, and in so many ways you're so far beyond me, but so many things that you say are resonating with what's happening in my life and, you know, what's being spoken to me by that still small voice.
Yes.
And it began to be, I guess, more trouble to ignore it or put it off than it was to just respond to it and let go and say, I don't know where we're going, but let's go.
We lost you again.
Pardon me?
Oh, there
we go.
Okay, I thought we lost you again.
Okay.
Just to make a quick comment on that, first of all, I'm very honored by your words. Thank you so much. But as far as that unfolding, that is very much part and parcel of what I went through and so many others are going through. And you can tie it into a larger cycle if you'd like, as far as passing out of the age of Pisces, which is ruled by devotion, and that is ruling the established religions and being devoted to like a political ideology, being devoted to a religious dispensation. That is passing away and allowing for the Aquarian age, which has to do with universality, flowing, groups, cooperation, all of these things. And that's why you see, as we were saying, these old forms that no longer fit have to fall by the wayside to allow for consciousness to free itself up.
Right.
If you were feeling these birth pangs, and I'll use that term, then these are indications, I would feel, as so many that I know have felt these similar birth pangs start up, and these little things that keep bugging you and biting at you. It's your intuition and it's your soul that are trying to make an impression on your physical brain to try to get you back to a remembering. And also when you say certain things resonate, that is very much my hope, is that perhaps not everybody's going to grasp every single aspect of the whole hour, but if there's some key word or some key phrase can resonate and ring true to you and get you to think and get the wheels spinning, that is certainly my hope. And I very much wish you much success on your journey, and please I would ask that you stay in touch with us if you are able to keep us, aware of how that's coming along for you.
Well, do you have meetings somewhere?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The third Wednesday, and my producer's going to put up a graphic here briefly. Every third Wednesday of the month, we host a metaphysical meeting that's at a restaurant/bar called Opal Divines, and we always meet upstairs. This is at 6th.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Okay.
Never been in
We
there.
always meet at the upstairs portion.
Okay.
We are there from 8 to, a lot of times we close the place down. But myself and Jeff Contreras, who hosts Therefore I Am on Tuesday nights at 10 on Channel 10, he and I co-host these meetings. And it's just a casual metaphysical meeting. And there's no real form or structure. We just get together and just everybody kind of breaks off and has conversations. And
Cool.
I'm more than happy to speak to you about whatever you have on your mind. And Jeff as well. He's another good source.
Yeah, I've watched him too, so. Okay, well, I think y'all are going to
Persons
be
like
busy.
Yarly will make an appearance on occasion.
I go there too.
Okay.
It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people that show up there.
Well, it's, you know, it's funny. I got real sick 14 years ago, and that's kind of where I guess the beginning of all this was. I can really see it back to my childhood, but the sickness is where I turned to mainstream doctors and my Christianity, and they didn't have the answers. I mean, it came down to, if I wanted to get well, I needed to let go of everything. And
oftentimes disease is a means for release from conditions that no longer are appropriate.
Right.
And sometimes it may end in a termination of life in some instances. If the form is that inadequate, then the life may terminate. But in an instance of a recovery, then it's like what would be termed an initiation or a trial, a trial by fire situation where you're tempered and tested and made stronger through these trials, and this larger unfolding is part and parcel of that test.
Yeah, the problem is it completely, totally changed my life. It changed my perspective.
True, upheaval is always, and I've experienced that many times through my life as well, where there's just a tremendous upheaval.
Yeah.
And things just seem topsy-turvy, but then they settle themselves out, and the sediment settles, and things are more on an even keel. And then from that experience, you can look back with hindsight, 2020, and see where you've been, and on that firm footing, see forward as to where you may proceed as well.
Right. Every time the challenge seems to be, are you willing to grow further?
Yeah, that's it. And the form is not allowing it, so the form is changing. The form is either
shedding that skin as a snake does.
That's exactly.
If I want to grow, I got to shed that skin. I've outgrown
perfect
it.
Analogy. Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, I will definitely come see you guys because I need to learn more, and we're fishing out of the same pond, I think.
I believe so as well. Thank you so much for your kind words. Have a nice evening. Okay, let's go ahead and grab another call quickly. Hello, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, it's Crazy Old Mo with just an audio snippet. About 30 seconds. It'll be amusing and good and edifying. Here we go.
Excellent.
Knowing that was her life in there, and that her life would never be the same because the world was divided up into 4 parts. There was the Magus, the Tutor, the Vancor, and the Doria. And the Doria and the Vancor were at war with the Tutor and the Fartos, who I haven't mentioned to this point, because they were the 5th part, who were invisible. And they were all powerful.
It's just cool and supposed to be a fun little fun. But that's old Gibby from the Surfers.
Oh, sweet.
Our good little nutty avatar that some people think might be one of the 70 Septuagints. But you never know.
That's the whole key. You never know, Mo. You really never know. And that's what keeps you guessing. It keeps you honest.
Have fun, friends. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care. Appreciate that. Yeah, and Alex Jones was cool enough to play some Jello Biafra for his intro music today, and I was thrilled to no end. I thought that was so cool. I was pretty jazzed about that. Jello Biafra, very outspoken political former singer of a punk band called the Dead Kennedys. I don't know if people are interested in that sort of thing. But, you know, once you start to understand esoteric science, you have a hard time not tying everything in. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and the good, the true, and the beautiful are 2 sides of the same coin. It's just which one do you want to emphasize in your expression. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. It's you.
Yeah, what's your educational background?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm a biochemist. I grew up in Norway, and I went to University of Houston and studied biophysical, biochemical sciences, and then I went to University of Texas and got a degree in PhD in biochemistry.
Okay.
Not much to do with time necessarily, but.
Do you guys work together on this show, or I mean, just Corey?
No, this is my
Corey.
show.
I just guest today.
Corey, what's your educational background?
Let's see. As far as outside of high school, graduated from high school, and I have an associate's degree in drafting and design from Temple Junior College. Very applicable to, well, drafting, design, certainly design ties into a lot of things, and that ties in even to masonry, if you can make that stretch to that symbolism as well. But the beauty of this is that the things that we're talking about have nothing to do with the rigid educational upbringing that most of us are experiencing in this life. We have to get outside of that structure to understand the fullness of what's really going on. And for somebody like Dr. Yarli Lilleman, who is a molecular biologist, to be able to embrace these metaphysical concepts and these quantum concepts and bring them home to what I'm trying to do on this show as far as demonstrating cause and effect, or spiritual cause to physical plane effects. then we can marry the two concepts and come together on the show and have a cooperation of information, an amalgamation, and just further branching out of cooperation. That's the key to get the exponential building up of this information out there.
There are really, truly healing aspects to this. I mean, has it worked? I've watched you, and sometimes you mesmerize me when I watch you on TV, but is it really a truly proven science, or is it just, if you believe it,
I think
it
everything
works?
is experiential, as we were saying, and really until you could make use of it for an amount of time and see exactly what the beneficial or perhaps negative effects may be in your own life, you wouldn't really be able to gauge that well. But just like esoteric science, you can look back in history and see who were the proponents of esoteric science: the Pythagoras, Galileo, John Dee, more well-known, Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, I can go on and on. Anybody that was groundbreaking scientist or
Isaac
philosopher,
Newton.
or Isaac Newton, they were related to, or they were involved in esoteric science. It may not have been very well publicized in their papers and what have you, but nonetheless, their basis came from this hidden information, this esoteric or occult
Albert
information.
Einstein.
Another good example, all quantum thinking is based in this ideology that the hidden has to come forward and make its way into our consciousness for us to have any real change. But as far as some of the things that you would notice would be coincidence, synchronicities, intuitive emphasis, and that being emphasized and accelerated. A lot of personal growth aspects, and then you'll see, again, synchronicities with, you're thinking about somebody and they call, or things of that nature that you'll see add up, synchronicities that are pretty key. But again, you have to use it. And as far as getting more information about the calendar, they were free at one time. They're not as free as they used to be. But if you're interested in learning more about the calendar, if you could either email my website, or there's different various ways. We have a comment line as well. If you could just contact us, we can make you more aware of the specific calendar if you want to make use of it, or just information in general. But I do thank you for taking the time to call.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Caller.
So, caller, you're on the air.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hey, can I ask two questions?
Go ahead, sure.
One for each of you.
Great.
Corey, you mentioned Freemasonry. Are you a Freemason?
No, I am not a Mason.
Okay.
But I do appreciate the fact that Masonry holds the keys latent within it, just like in our brain there's latent capacity. Freemasonry is the custodian of a future dispensation of ritual information and tapping into energy, all these things that we talk about, esoteric science and all that sort of thing. They're the custodian, just as the same sense as the church, in a way, as a custodian of spirituality, but they're yet to really have their full culmination of usefulness. They're laying latent right now, but we'll see their heyday in the future.
Did you see the Martin Luther thing last night on PBS? That was very good.
No, I didn't see it.
Really cool. Oh, but anyway, I'll get to the guest. I am not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination, or mathematician in any way, but a friend of mine who is gave me a book a while back called The Dancing Wooly Masters.
Oh, yeah. Excellent book. I've read that.
Okay, I was wondering if you could help iron something out, because that book was for the layperson, pretty much, and I did get, it sort of ruminated in my soul for a while, and I was able to garner some knowledge from it, but I got hung up on the particle versus wave ideology.
Okay.
And I wonder if you might comment on that and help me to see that more clearly.
Okay, so, well, how I understand it would be like, if light, you could treat it as a wave, because if you have a continuous beam of something, it would act like a wave.
Okay.
Because when you measure it, it's continuous, right? But when you start talking about individual photons, like one photon, then they act like particles. But the trouble is that, like, when they do those slit experiments where you have
Right.
two slits, if you shoot one single photon, it's a particle if it just goes through a hole, right?
Right.
It's a particle. It hits in random spots. It hits in one place or another place. If you do the slit experiment, it would either go through this way or it would go through that way. But the fact is that somehow, even though it can only go through one hole at a time, it still creates that interference pattern as if it was a wave.
Mm-hmm.
So the kind of the paradox is that somehow the photon is going in through one hole, but it knows the other hole is there.
Okay.
And
So it's presupposing some intelligence then in that instance?
There's some kind of information that's being passed from a slit to the other that it's non-local. That's the way they interpret it as a non-local event, so that it actually knows more than it's supposed to know because it's just a particle.
Wow,
That's how I understand that.
that really helps to unify a belief that I have. I believe in the godlike nature that man has.
That we're a pattern, we're an archetype, a pattern.
Yeah, and when you think about God speaking light into existence,
Yeah.
that light is a being unto itself, in a sense. And you're saying that there actually is proof that it has a sort of an intelligence, or at least a pre-programmed pattern, or...
I wouldn't necessarily say it's pre-programmed, but it's kind of like what you're saying, like it can sense things.
Mm-hmm.
And it can sense things more than what it's supposed to sense. And it's like information gets past the photon at superluminal speeds, or quicker than the speed of light.
Right.
And that's where the whole concept of this harmonic time comes in too, where the information is being passed faster than the speed of light. And as Einstein showed us, when something happens faster than the speed of light, it's outside of time and it's outside of space.
It's like eternity, like the serpent eating its tail.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And also frequency, too. We can't see with our physical eyes everything. There are a lot of things that are invisible to our eyes that are still there, and that aspect, too, I think might tie in a little bit. I don't know if that's further confused or elucidating.
No.
But I have to let you go. We don't have much time left.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for taking the time to view and call in. I don't have much time to grab any other calls. I apologize, but I'd just like to wrap up briefly here and mention that, yes, we are going to be having next Wednesday a philosophical meeting. Everyone's welcome to come, free, casual. Please check out Jeff Contreras, Therefore I Am, every Tuesday at 10 on Channel 10. I would like to give my guest, Yarly, a lot of thanks for coming back on, and you're welcome anytime.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure being here.
And so we'll consider the day at a time upcoming and try to make people aware of the events we're going to be having. And I'd like to thank my producer, Chris, for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. He's done a fine, bang-up job today, once again.
Great.
And I'd just like to thank Austin for taking the time to view and consider these concepts. Thanks a lot, Austin. Take care and have a nice evening. See ya.
Peace. See ya.